He had everything: wealth, cars, influence, and a last name that could bend the world around him. But behind the perfect smile and tailored clothes was a boy on the verge of collapse. His father had already given up on him. His teachers had stopped trying, and his classmates treated him like a joke. Everyone believed he was a lost cause. Everyone, except the one person he and the whole school had overlooked. Not a teacher, not a counselor, not even a friend. She was the school janitor. And when their paths collided, it started a chain of events that no one saw coming, twists that would leave his powerful father furious, his school in chaos, and the boy himself transformed forever. 17-year-old Ethan Carter lived in a penthouse overlooking Dallas, Texas, the kind of place people only saw in magazines. His father, Richard Carter, was one of the most powerful real estate moguls in the country. His name was stamped on half the skyscrapers in the city. To everyone else, the Carters represented success. To Ethan, it felt like a cage. At his private school, Ethan was infamous. He wore designer sneakers worth more than most people's rent. He pulled into the student lot in a sleek Corvette. Teachers pretended not to see his test scores. He wasn't known for his intelligence. He was known for his arrogance. Once, when the counselor called him in about his failing grades, Ethan smirked, leaned back in the chair, and said, "Grades don't matter when your last name is Carter. I could buy this school if I wanted to." The line spread like wildfire, making him both envied and despised. At home, things were worse. Richard Carter didn't tolerate weakness, not in business, not in life, and especially not in his own son. One night, after yet another call from the school, Richard looked Ethan in the eye and said, "You're an embarrassment. If you worked for me, you'd already be fired." Ethan rolled his eyes. "I'm not your employee, Dad." "No," Richard said coldly, "but the world doesn't care. Either you make something of yourself, or you'll be nothing but a spoiled name I refuse to carry." The silence that followed was louder than any scream. The next morning, Ethan strutted into school pretending nothing happened. He still walked the halls like he owned them. But someone was watching. Her name was Angela Moore, a quiet black woman in her 50s, dressed in a faded custodian's uniform, pushing her mop down the back hallway. She'd worked there for years, invisible to everyone. To Ethan, she was background noise, just the janitor. Until one morning, when his father had cut off his credit cards and taken away his car, forcing Ethan onto the bus. Bitter and angry, he stormed into school and past Angela. She was humming softly to herself while cleaning. But then Ethan heard her murmur, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." He stopped. "What did you just say?" Angela looked up calmly. "Nothing you're ready to understand, son." For the first time in years, Ethan was speechless. And for reasons he couldn't explain, those words stuck in his head like a splinter. The following weeks were brutal. Ethan's grades hit rock bottom. A 24% in math, a 31% in history, a humiliating 0 in biology. Even his English teacher wrote in red ink across his essay, "Did you even read the passage?" Students laughed behind his back. Some mocked him openly. The counselor said he was statistically at the bottom of the senior class. And his father delivered the final blow. "Turn things around immediately, or you're out of this house." No trust fund, no car, nothing. That night, Ethan wandered the empty halls after school to avoid the stairs. And there she was again, Angela, scrubbing a soda spill near the cafeteria. "You," he said, stopping in his tracks. "That quote you said about Socrates. I can't stop thinking about it." Angela stood, arms crossed. "And yet, you still failed another test." He bit his cheek. "That one stung. You were a teacher, weren't you?" She studied him. "Professor. English, literature, and philosophy. Before life knocked me sideways. Then teach me," Ethan whispered. "Please." Angela hesitated, then laid down her condition. "Leave your name and your pride at the door. We start from 0, right here, on the floor." And for the first time in his life, Ethan agreed. The next morning, before sunrise, he showed up at school with a battered notebook Angela had given him. Their lessons began in secret. Mornings before class, evenings after she finished cleaning. She didn't lecture. She asked questions that cut through his armor. "What did this sentence make you feel? Why do you think this character stayed silent? What does courage sound like?" At first, Ethan struggled. His writing was clumsy, his reflections shallow. But Angela pushed him. And slowly, something changed. For the first time in his life, he cared. When Richard Carter found out, he was furious. "You're learning from the janitor?" he roared. "She mops floors, Ethan. That's what she is. That's all she'll ever be." "She taught me more than you ever did," Ethan shouted back. "She sees me. You never have." Richard's face turned to stone. "If you keep this up, you lose everything. No car, no money, no name." And trembling but resolute, Ethan answered, "Then maybe I need to lose it all to figure out who I really am." Their lessons continued, and soon, Ethan wasn't the only one. A quiet girl from biology joined. Then another boy from history. Before long, Angela was teaching small groups of students in the abandoned library after hours. They read Baldwin, Morrison, Hughes. They debated. They wrote. They cried. But word spread. Parents complained. The assistant principal called Angela into the office. "This isn't your job. You're not certified here." Angela's answer was simple. "Neither is saving a life." "But I did that anyway." Within a week, she was fired. No warning. No goodbyes. Escorted out the back gate with her mop bucket. When Ethan found out, he felt hollow. His fire dimmed. He walked like a ghost through the halls. Until one bulletin board announcement stopped him cold. Senior speech contest. What it means to win in life. Open to families and community. This wasn't just an assignment. This was his chance. His war. The auditorium was packed. Parents in suits, reporters with cameras, students whispering. Ethan stepped onto the stage in plain jeans and a navy shirt. No luxury. No last name to hide behind. Just him. He began. "My name is Ethan Carter. Some of you know me as the kid who wasted every chance, who failed every test. But what you don't know is that I wasn't failing because I couldn't learn. I was failing because no one ever taught me how. Until someone did." She wasn't a teacher. Not officially. She had no office. No authority. Just a mop and a heart big enough to cut through my pride. She taught me that winning isn't about money or power. It's about becoming someone worth remembering. Her name is Angela Moore. And she didn't just save my grades. She saved my life. The auditorium went silent. Then one clap. Then another. Then the entire room erupted into a standing ovation. And from the very back, a woman in a headscarf wiped her eyes. Angela. She had come back quietly, just to see him shine. The video of his speech went viral. Billionaire's son credits Janitor for saving his life. News outlets ran the story. Angela was offered a teaching position at a local college. Doors reopened. Not because of her resume, but because truth could no longer be ignored. Ethan passed his classes, not with pity, but with purpose. He rejected Ivy League offers and instead used his inheritance to create the Angela Moore Institute, a community center for overlooked students. Angela became its first teacher. And on opening day, Richard Carter stood quietly in the back. For the first time, he saw his son, not as a failure, not as an heir, but as a man. Afterward, he admitted, voice cracking, "I didn't expect to cry." Ethan smiled. "I didn't expect to forgive you." Years later, the institute grew into a national movement. And whenever Ethan told the story, he ended with the same words. Greatness doesn't come from being seen. It comes from seeing others. And sometimes, the person who teaches you the most isn't wearing a suit. Sometimes, they're holding a mop.